Well, hello, friends. This here's David Vos. Today is February 18th, 2016. It's good to see everybody today. Well, I'm out here on a beautiful sunny day in New Mexico, and the last time I looked at the thermometer was 70 degrees. It's probably 71, 72 degrees. Amazing, beautiful. Well, as I came out here today, thinking about, well, what am I going to talk about? Because, I never write anything down, but usually I'll think of something. Okay, I'll talk about this subject or that subject, and then I just turn it on and start talking. And usually there's plenty of things to talk about. Today, what came to mind is death and living forever. Because, this should be a really big subject. Not too many people talk about that. There's a few people that will talk about hell. Oh, there's no hell. Or there's a few people who will talk about reincarnation. But it's as if nobody knows a whole lot about that. Because we should have a lot of questions about that. Reincarnation. Do we always get reincarnated? Why is it that we're reincarnated over and over and over again, and we expect to leave and go to heaven this time? Is there something changed in our world today, in this day and age, and we're not going to go reincarnated anymore? Because reincarnation is kind of scary. It's not, it may sound like a good thing in a sense, like, oh, well, I guess we don't die then. Well, on the other hand, it's kind of, you pretty much lose everything. Like, right now, I'm David. That's who I am. And I don't want to lose who I am, my daughter, everything I have, my home, my world, my father, my mother. Well, I've already kind of lost some of that, but many of us have to go through that loss. As we get older, we lose our parents. Sometimes we lose siblings and relatives. And so it does seem to be a natural thing that we have to go through loss. But most people, when they're reincarnated, don't remember a darn thing. They lose it all. That doesn't mean it's completely lost, but it's lost to a point because you can't live in the past anyway. You had a mind that was so brilliant that you could just remember every life and everything you've ever done, even back when you were transmigrating through the animal kingdom. You remember running and flying and stuff. We probably do have memories of a lot of that we don't have any way to understand. When we have a memory of flying, it's just a split second, and you might not know where that memory came from. We don't have any way to relate it, because it's like with computers. If you bring up a file and you're looking at it and it's not, you don't have no way to explain what that file is and what it has to do with, it means nothing. In a computer, you have batch files and program files and cabinet files and different things. Well, the file's meaningless with all the other information. So if I have this feeling of flying, but I don't remember being a bird, or I don't remember growing up in a nest or something, all I have this feeling of flying, or maybe I have a feeling of helplessness or just freedom. These could be memories from the past, but you have no way to relate that. You can't remember the whole thing. You're just remembering pieces. So yeah, you might have a lot of your memories. They may all, it goes into your essence. So you don't ever forget anything. But a lot of good that does you, because I often think, when I was 9 years old, I always think back to this one moment where I was sitting on top of this propane tank, big old propane tank, which at 9 years old, that thing was huge. I'd saddle that thing like a horse, and I'd sit up there and kick it, bang, 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 and just think, and look off into space, pretend I was a cowboy or something, or I was driving a car. I remember that, and I remember thinking, wow, I'm 9. In 10 years, I'll be 19. And I'll be grown up. I'll have a car. Maybe I'll get married. And I was thinking, wow, but that's, 10 years, that's a long time. Of course, now I look back and that was just 10 years is nothing, right? But, and I still remember that kid, but not as much as you would think. I remember little snapshots, right? And little memories and thoughts and stuff. We don't remember every day-to-day thing that happened to us when we were 9. See, I had things going on in my life at that time I don't remember now. I mean, I do remember that time sitting out there and kicking the propane tank, but I don't remember, to be honest with you, I don't remember if we were going to the market that day with Mom, or I just got back from school, or what was going on exactly. I don't remember everything. I don't remember what time of year it was, although there was sunshine. This was probably in the summer, but, you know, there's just a lot that we lose, right? So, in a sense, we've already been reincarnated, I don't know how many times, because the life I had when I was 9 is not the life I'm living now. Totally different. I mean, my goodness, I would never have dreamed when I was 9 that I would grow up and be on this YouTube talking to all of you. I would never have dreamed at 9 that I would lose my mother to cancer in a brutal, terrible, awful, wicked, painful death. I would never know at 9 that my father would betray me and never speak to me for many, many years, or that my sister would be murdered by doctors at 46 years old. So many things. I wouldn't have known when I was 9 that I was going to spend more time with a little puppy at my age than my own father or my family. There's a lot of stuff that I wouldn't have known, that I couldn't have imagined. But now I'm experiencing these things, and they're all very important to me. And in a year or two, I'll forget all about these things. And in 10 or 15 years, these puppies will be gone, and I won't remember them, like I remember them now. Maybe I'll have another dog. But life goes on. You have to detach from all of these things. That's our ego. So it's important that we move on. We live the life that we have in the present. So it ultimately, in the big scheme of things, it's not so bad that we forget our past lives, but the essence stays with us. However, that doesn't comfort me, because, you see, I'm worried about my daughter. I love her very, very much. She's 23 years old, and she's doing great. I'm so proud of her. She is so awesome. What a little lady. What an intelligent woman. And beautiful. But I can't help it. I'm her father, and if anything happens, I immediately feel the pain. If she's hungry, I feel hungry. If she's cold, I feel cold. If she needs anything, I do everything in my power to make sure she has that, because I feel so close to her as my daughter, and I would never want to lose that. I mean, if I had to, I remember when my mother passed away. I know that my mother, she didn't say this every day in so many words, but she probably said something here and there. And the way I knew my mother, I knew she loved her children. She had 5 kids, and she loved them all very, very much. And she did everything in her power during her life to protect us and to care for us. Even right until the day she died, when she was going through all this excruciating pain. She didn't care about herself, she cared about us. She fought for us. She loved us. She cared for us. And I can imagine, and I sometimes wonder, when she was passing away, what she felt. The fear she felt for us. Not for herself, but for us. What would be our outcome? Would we be all right? Because at that time when she passed away, I didn't even, I didn't have many of the things I have now. I mean, I have a home and stable, and at that time, I was just sort of a nomad, and she probably wondered, I wonder if my son is going to be able to take care of himself, I was just an explorer. I didn't even care a lot at that time in my life, I didn't even hold down a job for very long. I would just go and, take my check and go, I climb a mountain. nothing. I didn't have a lot of fear about stability. I didn't worry too much about preparing for the future and so forth. I just lived by the seat of my pants. And so I'm just saying, if you think about that, then reincarnation is not something that we would really. For some of us, it might sound like a great thing, but for some of you, it probably sounds like a fearful thing. It might be better than death itself into oblivion, right? But or certainly better than going to hell, fire, and burning forever. But it still doesn't give us that much comfort when we're about to pass away and we're afraid that we're going to lose consciousness and we'll never see our children again. So what is this thing? Is that the way things really are? You say, well, that was then, and now we're all going to go to heaven. Well, what's changed from now to the days of Jesus or thousands of years ago? Sometimes you look around and you think, well, things haven't changed that much. We're still killing each other. We haven't grown. We haven't progressed. We're still going to get reincarnated because we're not ready for heaven. So, que sera, ego, this world, mom, dad, bye. And that's a frightening thought, to lose our family. It's a frightening thought for me. If I pass away, I won't see my daughter. In the next life, I won't remember her. And that's frightening to me because I am somewhat attached to the people and the things in this world. So now, we know from what many have said that these attachments are actually what keep us coming back because we want to make sure that our loved ones are all right. But it's actually worse than that because sometimes the people we hate is the reason we keep coming back. We build up karma. So we will see them again. If we've got some kind of a karma, tie, we end up coming back and living the whole thing out again. But you see, it's not that comforting. And I'm trying to ask you, have you ever thought about this? Because this is the questions that we need to be asking. What's really going on? Is any of this is true? Well, here's the thing. 5,000 years ago, people were killing each other, and today we're still killing each other. But we have progressed, and let me explain to you why. 5,000 years ago, when people killed one another, they didn't think anything of it. That was just the way things were. They didn't just kill people. I did a video yesterday, you should really watch, all of you, about how there was human sacrifices going on in the nation of Israel, and that was part of the law of Jehovah. People killed their children, and they didn't like it too much. Abraham didn't like it too much. He had to kill his son. But he was willing to do it. But you see, today, we would not be willing to do that. There's very few people that would even entertain such an idea. Although there's few people living that would give their children up for religion. I mean, it's similar. But to actually take a knife and slice somebody up into pieces and burn them on an altar, very few of us would do that today. You see, today we still have war, but it's a lot different because now we've got a lot of people saying, I'm a conscientious objector and I don't believe in war and I'm not going to join. You don't have to. Now some people do, but it's far away. You push a button and a missile goes and blows somebody up and you don't really get to see it. You don't take your knife and your sword and go over there and cut people up. Very few of us today, if we went to a real battle with the real sword and shot people and killed people and sliced them up, we'd have a crisis of conscience. We wouldn't be able to do it. And even a lot of the people today who actually do go to war and you talk to them, they also, even though they've killed people, in the middle of all of this, they start having a crisis in their conscience and they start saying, I don't like this. And a lot of them go for 2, 3 years, 4 years in the army and they quit. And then their whole life they're disturbed. See, people weren't disturbed over this thousands of years ago. Now, people are finding it very hard. So you see, things have changed. And so, what I'm trying to tell you is that when people die, this generation is different than the past. Most of us are not going to be reincarnated over and over again. We're at the point where we're going to go on to heaven now. We're going to ascend. Because, you see, here's the part of this thing that we've never really talked about and we don't understand. People came back into this world and forgot what they were and what they did for a reason. Because it was like shock. Our Father in heaven is very loving and kind. So he gives us this mechanism within us so we can forget some of this stuff. We were killed on a battlefield, bloody, gruesome pain and death. We have to forget that. See, that was awful. The stuff that we lived through thousands of years ago, we couldn't bear to keep that in our memory. That's why we forgot. See, most of us today, all the things that we've done and experienced, we want to remember. So, we're not going to forget, because we're not the same. We've grown. There are a lot of people that are on this earth today that aren't even here because of their sin. They're here because they choose to be here. Because you see, a lot of human beings weren't growing and progressing. And there was this evil devil on the world messing with people's minds and keeping us in bondage. So Jesus came here willingly. He didn't come here because he was a sinner. He came here willingly and partook of this, knowing he could get himself out of it. But he came here to conquer this, and to show us that we're going to eventually conquer it. He represents that spiritual man within us that's eventually going to come out. It's going to wake up. So this is how he explained it to us. The spiritual man, all those in Christ, will wake up. Will never die. But the flesh, everybody in Adam, will die. The flesh will eventually pass away. You've got to let go of that ego. It's going to go anyway. Let go of it. The pain. And you're going to wake up in a better world. So, today, many of us are like Jesus, in the sense that we chose to come here to help the world. We chose to come here not because we deserve to be punished and be slapped around and Remember, Jesus says there's a resurrection of the righteous and the unrighteous. There's a resurrection to life, or eternal life, and then there's a resurrection unto judgment. And I've explained in some of my other videos that resurrection unto judgment means that we build up karma, we have a debt to pay, and we have to come back to pay that debt. Now when you do that, that's reincarnation, and that means that you forget everything, the murder and the death and the plunder, and we just kind of forget it because it was too hard to bear. And we come back because we murdered somebody. Very traumatic experiences go with all that. And we kind of forget, but we come back, and then these experiences happen to us so that we can begin to grow and understand this is not good. This is painful. You stick your hand in the fire and you pull it back out and you say, man, that hurts. So we learn by the things that we suffered. And many of us have come to a place now where the human race now is aware and is having a crisis of conscience, and we're saying we don't like war. We don't like killing. We're not perfect, but we're starting to realize that we're seeking that which is above now. We're searching. Jesus said if you search, you're going to find. If you knock, it's going to be opened. And the whole human race is knocking right now. And this is it. This is the final generation for many of us. Some of us that are on this planet right now don't even deserve to be here. We're just here to help certain individuals. Because you see, when you love people, you don't, some of the people on this planet are people that we knew in other lifetimes, that we know they need us. And we're here to kind of show them the way. Give them some better experiences. And maybe we were born into this world as someone's father, or someone's daughter, or someone's son, or someone's best friend. And we're there to make a difference in that person's life. That's the only reason we're here. Some of us are here for grand reasons. And others have been reincarnated for many, many generations, and they've kind of come to this point where they're waking up. And this will be the last time. And yeah, there are a few who are still carnal and perhaps are not going to wake up in this life. There will be a harvest, and a time when the bulk of the human beings on this planet have evolved to a place where it's time that they don't have to come back to this rotten place, and the earth is going to be transformed in all of society. And certain individuals that just can't make that leap are going to be quarantined and taken somewhere else. But no, they're not going to be taken to a place of burning flames of fire and worms that don't die. That's only symbolic, friends. But most of the human population on this planet is very close to the ascension, friends. We're not going to keep going back to the earth and paying for our sins, because you see, this is what the law of Moses in represents, the law of the physical universe, that it's karma, that if I kill, I must be killed. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That was the old system. And the only way to pass through that and on to the next system is that we finally forgive. Once you can forgive, somebody comes and pokes your eye out, and you say, well, I forgive you, then that means that you've come to a place where all of that stuff is behind you, and you can move on. You forgive them, and our Father in heaven immediately forgives you. He's already forgiven you, right? Generations ago, right? That's why he kept coming back. He just kept giving you mercy, giving you time to learn. He disciplines those whom he loves. So all of this has been discipline for us. Correction. There is no punitive suffering. Our Father in heaven doesn't do that. But most of us on this planet now are ready to experience a beautiful paradise and eternal life. You know, there's a lot of people that have been taught that when you die, that's it. There is no, if it weren't for a God that comes down and somehow is able to take you back out of oblivion and recreate you, that's what the resurrection is. Because when everybody dies, they just die, they go into oblivion. That's what they believe. Seventh-day Adventists believe that. Jehovah's Witnesses believe that, and quite a few other groups believe that. They call it soul sleep, which to me is kind of contradictory, because you're either sleeping or you're not existing. Which is it? If it's, if they can't even define it better than that, then it doesn't sound like they really know what they're talking about. Do they believe in soul sleep, or do they believe in soul extinction? You see, because sleeping doesn't mean you're extinct. When Jesus said, don't worry, Lazarus is sleeping. Don't worry. Or he's talking about a woman that died, and he said, no, she's just sleeping. He didn't mean she didn't exist. He meant that her flesh could not remember. She was just sleeping, and the things that she was doing that was causing all this insanity is because she was the child of a loving Father who just kind of erased that out of her mind, so she couldn't remember those things, and she passed away and lived another life. She was just sleeping. That's what he meant. Same thing with Lazarus. He said, Lazarus, come out. And he heard him. And he came out. Because you see, the Christ can reach you. You hear the voice of Christ, and you come out. And for all of us, when we finally get to the place where we can hear that spiritual man and believe in that spiritual man and wake up, we come out. We're getting to that point now, friends. This whole generation is at that point. But for a lot of you who believe that 3 or 4 scriptures in the Old Testament is enough to convince you that when we die, that's it, we don't exist anymore. I think one of them is in Ecclesiastes that says the dead know nothing at all. And that's it. That's enough for them. No matter that a few verses before that it says, who knoweth the spirit of man that ascendeth upward, and the spirit of the beast that ascendeth downward to the earth. And it's obviously talking about the fact that when you die, you pass away, if you have a very carnal, beast-like spirit, it may pass back into the earth and reincarnate. But who knows if the spirit of man can ascend and get out of this nonsense. See, it's just very sad the way certain individuals have been abused and taught many evil and wicked, misleading things from one verse here or there. The Bible is full of this expression, and they died and they were gathered unto their fathers. This is all throughout the Bible. Look it up in Strong's Concordance. What does it mean that when they died they were gathered unto their fathers? A lot of you think, well, that must mean they were gathered in a graveyard, to where they were buried. Well, if you look that up, you'll find out in some cases they weren't even buried. And it says they were gathered unto their fathers. They went to a different graveyard. It wasn't the same place where their fathers were buried. So it has nothing to do with that. Jesus talks about there were certain individuals that were sitting around the table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So when you pass on, there's a symbology going on here explaining to you that you go back with your family. And this is what happens, friends. All of you who have ever lived before in many other lifetimes, our Father in Heaven's loving. He doesn't take you away from all those you love. You just sometimes you forget because you guys have been fighting and killing one another, and it's something that you don't want to remember. So you can't bear it. So He takes that from you and gives you another life. This is loving. It's not a punishment. It's loving. You're able to go through and learn by the things you suffer without having to experience the trauma. What a gift. But, He gives a parable about certain individuals who, when they die, they're in pain. Because you see, when you live in this life and you do very bad things, it's very tough. And so you have to learn. And so you're brought back in another world, in a place where your life isn't very good and you're suffering. And so it's like a parable where if you could just wake up at that moment and say, hey, send somebody down here to help me remember not to do bad in the next life so I don't get back in this place. So I don't have to pay for this stuff I do and have karma and so forth. And Jesus said that there is karma. There is a reward for what we do. Jesus talked about how if you go into hell, you're going to pay the last penny. Now, once that penny is paid, you're out. But that doesn't mean that Jesus is saying we got to get to heaven through works. It just means that there is a consequence to everything we do, and as we grow and we learn, we overcome by the things we suffer. But we're not going to get out of hell or this life of suffering until we've paid for all of it. But all we have to do is do an act of love, and it covers over a multitude of sin. In the New Testament, it says that one act of goodness or love covers over many sins. And if we just forgive others, our sins are forgiven. So you see, it's just very symbolic. What it's saying is that we live our life, we do bad things, we're going to pay for those things. Not according to the law of Moses, that's just an example. That's just a shadow of the way reality actually is. And if we do bad things, we're going to pay for those things. But human beings are not as bad as they used to be. Sure, we have problems and selfishness, and we're still overcoming a lot of these things. But we're not murderers. The bulk of the society in Europe and America and Latin America and China and so forth, they're not running around killing each other. The bulk of the people would have a terrible crisis of conscience if they had to murder someone. We've changed. And we're beginning to learn how to love one another and give gifts of charity and help one another and love one another. We're beginning to learn these things. So in spite of what you probably think, we are progressing. And behind the scenes here in America, there's some good people working, friends. Even though it looks almost hopeless right now with this election being rigged and the ignorance and the wickedness, by corporate leaders who are trying to destroy us and keep us down. But that doesn't mean they've got us by the gonads. Because, you see, you look around and you notice there's a lot of people waking up. They know what's going on. These corporate leaders, it's just one last mad, insane attempt to keep us down. But they're going to lose. They're going to fail, friends. So, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and close there, friends. And I hope that helps some of you understand why we're here and whether we're going to go ahead and live on in the next world and where we're going to go. We're going to sail off and be free. Jesus says there's many homes or mansions or places to live in my Father's house. Now, His Father's house is the universe, and there's many places to live in the universe, and we're going to go from glory to glory, even as is done by the Lord. 2 Corinthians 3:18. We're going to progress, and we're going to keep progressing, and we're going to enjoy, and we're going to have experiences and wonderful adventures. In the next world, we're going to be able to remember everything that we've done. And it's going to come back to us, many of the things that we've done in the past. Because then we're going to be able to handle those things. We're going to understand that, those memories of war and death, they've lost a lot of the pain because we understand it now. We know who we are. We have confidence. We have love for one another. And we'll be able to remember who we are. And it's all going to come together soon, friends. So, that's really all I have to say today, friends. You guys have a great week. This here's David Vos, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.